Good morning, Year 5, and welcome to today's English lesson. You will need a pen or a pencil, a home learning book, or paper to write on. So pause the video now if you need to get them. Your writing task this week is to write a short story. Your story will be based on the last thing. Each day you will build up ideas ready to do an extended piece of writing on Friday. So here's our model text for today. Sean struggled to keep up with the last thing. Its metallic legs were much longer than Sean's. The bottle tops that he'd collected earlier fell from his pocket, but there was no time to stop and pick them up. Eventually, they came to a menacing alleyway which was dimly lit. Sean felt panic building inside. This place did not look safe. Abruptly, the lost thing stopped, causing Sean to also bash into the back of it. "Ah!" cried Sean, who quickly put a hand over his mouth. Up ahead was a small creature, or object, one couldn't be sure, huddled in the corner. Sean, who was tapping his foot anxiously, slowly approached it. On closer inspection, he could see that it was a green cylinder with soft, squishy arms and legs. Now he understood. It was another lost thing. So have a look and see if you can figure out what feature have I highlighted in red. Well done, they are relative clauses. So today our LO is to use relative clauses in my writing. So a relative clause can be used to give additional information about a noun. It can use the relative pronouns who, whom, which, what, whose, that. Relative clauses give extra information related to a previously mentioned noun or pronoun within a sentence. A relative clause always starts with a relative pronoun such as. So here again we have our examples for relative pronouns. Joe, who was dressed as a cowboy, was excited about his friend's fancy dress party. Who is the relative pronoun here used to begin the relative clause. As this is extra, non-essential information, we put the clause in commas. This is often called an embedded or sandwich clause. A relative clause is a special type of subordinate clause that describes or gives extra information about the noun. Here's the tiger that ate my carrots. The pronoun that adds more information and tells us more about the tiger. Kath has a son who is a farmer. The pronoun who tells us more about the noun, so tells us more about the son. Words like who, which, whose, that are relative pronouns that can introduce relative clauses. He won the gymnastics competition, which was in China. Leanne was a girl who knew what she wanted. Use who when you're talking about a person. Use which or that when you're talking about a thing or an object. You can sometimes leave out the relative pronoun and the sentence will still make sense. I liked the dress that you bought me. Or you can say, I liked the dress you bought me. Be careful. There is still a relative clause, even once the pronoun has been removed. Relative clause here is you bought me. That is the extra information. Sometimes you can't leave out the relative pronoun. The sentence won't make sense. I cheered the girl who was winning, or I cheered the girl was winning. So as you can see, the second sentence, it does not make sense without the relative pronoun. So let's try this one. Pete, who was a friend of Sean, tried to help figure out what the lost thing was. So take a moment and see if you can figure out what the relative clause is. Well done. Who was a friend of Sean? We know this because it's extra information, it's in between commas, and it has a relative pronoun. The house that was brown belonged to Sean. So what is the relative clause here? Excellent. That was brown. It's the extra information, and we have a relative pronoun that. Which of these sentences has used a relative clause, and how do you know? The bottle tops which Sean found were red and blue. Sean brought the plastic the lost thing had asked for. The lost thing sat sadly waiting for someone to notice it. So pause the video and tick or cross these sentences. Welcome back, let's take a look. So, the first one, which Sean found. Here this is a relative clause. How do I know? Because it has a relative pronoun and it gives us extra information. Number 2. Now we need to be careful with this one. There is no relative pronoun, but there still is a relative clause. There still is extra information being added. On the last one, no, we don't have any relative clause in the last one. Good work, everyone. Have I used a relative clause correctly? And how do you know? The box that Sean kept hidden was of great interest to the lost thing. Sean, which was only 15, found the lost thing. Sean's mom, who was in a bad mood, told Sean to get rid of it. So pause the video and take or cross. Welcome back, let's take a look. So the first one is correct. That Sean kept hidden is the extra information. Number 2, we have which was only 15. This one is incorrect because Sean is a person, so it should be Sean who was only 15. And the last one is also incorrect again. Sean's mom is a person, so it should be who was in a bad mood. So again, a reminder, a relative clause can be used to give additional information about a noun. It can use the relative pronouns who, whom, which, what, whose, that. So our LO today is to use relative clauses in your writing. And let's review the story. So in the story, Sean finds the lost thing, a strange object, and he doesn't know where it belongs. He eventually gets a card to a place where there seems to be all kinds of lost things or strange objects or creatures, and he leaves the lost thing there. Reminder that there's also a link to this story on YouTube if you'd like to see it or read it again. Which passage is stronger? How do you know? The lost thing, which was sad and lonely, was incredibly grateful that Sean helped it. The lost thing was incredibly grateful that Sean helped it. So number 1 or number 2? Take a moment to try to figure it out. Very good. The answer will be number 1. Number 1 because we have our relative clause, which was sad and lonely. Now the next one, which passage is stronger? Pete used his machine, which was from China, on the lost thing. Or Pete used his machine on the lost thing. So pause the video if you need. Very good. The answer is number 1, because number 1 has the extra information. It has the relative clause, which was from China. So help me improve my writing. Have I included relative clauses? And can you edit and refine my work? The lost thing stayed close to Sean's side as they walked the deserted streets. All around them, the streets were filled with odd bits of scrap metal and rubbish. So pause the video now and improve my writing. Welcome back, let's take a look. So this is what I improved my writing to. The lost thing that was scared and lonely stayed close to Sean's side as they walked the deserted streets. All around them, the streets, which were dimly lit, were filled with odd bits of scrap metal and rubbish. So here I added in 2 relative clauses. That was scared and lonely and which were dimly lit. Well done if you added in some relative clauses. So, your turn. Your writing task today is to write the climax of the story. So explain the poem in detail and don't forget to add relative clauses in your story. Here again is the example of the model text, so pause the video if you want to take anything from it. And I've also added in this poster to help you if needed. So good luck with your writing today, and I will talk to you all soon.